Los Angeles, a sprawling, vibrant city that pulses with energy, is often seen as a beacon of endless possibility. It's a place where dreams are born, where the streets shimmer with ambition, and the glow of neon lights seems to promise that anything, absolutely anything, is possible. I had lived here long enough to experience the pulse of the city, to feel the electric hum of the nightlife, to taste the highs and lows of its frenetic rhythm. Yet, amid all the excitement, amid all the fleeting pleasures this city had to offer, nothing had ever made my heart race the way it did when I saw him. There's a way a place like Los Angeles changes a person. It teaches you to be quick, to make decisions on the fly, to adapt to the dizzying speed of life. I'd spent years learning to navigate it all: career, social circles, fleeting relationships, and I had become accustomed to the noise, the chaos, the never-ending flow of possibilities. I had learned to see the city for what it was: a mosaic of broken dreams, glistening aspirations, and superficial connections. I had tasted all that it had to offer, and, like many before me, I thought I had seen it all. But I was wrong. It started in the most ordinary of ways: an ad posted on a local rental board. My husband, the practical one, had been talking about finding a tenant to rent out the extra room in our apartment for some time. It was a simple decision for him: more income, less space to manage. But for me, it wasn't just about the money. I saw this as something more, a chance for something unexpected, something real, something that had eluded me in the sea of distractions Los Angeles had to offer. I had been so caught up in the routine of life, my marriage, my career, the expectations of others, that I forgot what it felt like to want something more. The city had swallowed me whole, had distracted me with its lights, its noise, its endless barrage of experiences. It was easy to get lost here, to fade into the background, to become just another face in the crowd. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I knew I was still searching for that spark, for that connection, for that feeling of being alive. And then he came. His name was Evan. The first time I saw him, I knew nothing about him, just that his energy felt different. There was something about him that made me pause, something that made the world around me seem just a little less noisy. He was younger than I was, not by much, but enough that I noticed it. I could have dismissed it easily, told myself it was a simple infatuation, a passing attraction, but something inside me refused to ignore it. He walked into our apartment with a sense of purpose, his movements confident, yet unhurried. He had a presence that could not be ignored. It wasn't the kind of presence that demanded attention, but rather one that naturally drew it in, as though the air around him shifted when he entered a room. His smile was subtle. His eyes, dark and steady, seemed to hold secrets that I was desperate to know. It wasn't just the way he looked at me that caught me off guard. It was the way he made me feel. He was comfortable in his own skin in a way I hadn't seen in a long time, perhaps never before. In a city like Los Angeles, it was easy to be jaded, to become numb to the constant barrage of personalities and desires that surrounded me. But Evan was different. He wasn't looking for validation. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, least of all me. He was just being himself. And in a world where everyone seemed to be playing a role, where every conversation felt like a transaction, there was something incredibly refreshing about his authenticity. Over the next few weeks, I got to know him more, or rather, I got to observe him. He was respectful, polite, always willing to help when needed, but I sensed there was more beneath the surface. I could hear it in the way he spoke about his life, about his dreams, about the city he was still trying to navigate. There was a quiet yearning in his voice, a sense of someone trying to figure out where they belonged in a world that seemed to be spinning too fast for them to catch up. It wasn't love at first sight, not in the way that the movies portray it, but there was something undeniable between us, a connection, a spark, something that lingered in the air like the calm before a storm. And though I kept my distance, though I told myself it was just a passing interest, my mind kept returning to him. It was as if the universe had thrown me into this city full of noise, full of distractions, and Evan had become the one thing that could cut through all of it. He was a reminder of something I had lost somewhere along the way, the ability to feel something real, something deep. But it wasn't just his presence that affected me. It was everything about him. The way he spoke, the way he moved, the way he seemed to hold the world at arm's length, yet with such grace. There was a mystery to him that drew me in, a curiosity I couldn't explain. I wanted to know him more, to understand what made him tick, to explore the depths of that quiet confidence he wore like a second skin. But I didn't act on it. Not at first. I told myself that it was just a passing attraction, that it was nothing more than a fleeting interest. But in my heart, I knew it was more, much more. One day, after a few weeks of casual interactions, I found myself standing in front of him, asking for his help. A small, insignificant request, one I could have easily handled myself. But it felt different this time. I wanted an excuse to be near him, to breathe in his presence, to see if that connection between us would manifest in the smallest of gestures. The light in the guest room had been flickering for days, and I decided it was time to fix it. My husband, Mark, was busy as always. I knew he wouldn't have the time, so I asked Evan if he could help. When he agreed, I knew it was my chance. I didn't just need the light fixed. I needed to be near him, to see if my thoughts were right, to test whether this quiet pull I felt toward him was real. And that night, as he climbed the ladder to fix the light, I stood beneath him, watching. His shirt was off, the warmth of the room making it unnecessary to cover up. I couldn't help but watch as his muscles shifted beneath his skin, as the sweat glistened on his body in the soft, golden light of the room. In that moment, I realized something that I had known deep down, but had refused to acknowledge. I wanted him. Not just in the physical sense, but in every way. I wanted to lose myself in him, to feel everything he had to offer, to feel alive again in a way I hadn't in years. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, and as I watched him, I knew that there was no turning back. There are moments in life when the world shifts, when everything around you seems to slow down, and you become acutely aware of the smallest details, details that, in any other moment, would pass you by unnoticed. This was one of those moments. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. It wasn't supposed to be him, but when the door opened and Evan stood there, it felt as if time itself had bent, just for me, just for us. The light in the hallway was soft, and for a second it felt as if the whole apartment was holding its breath, waiting for what was about to unfold. Evan's presence was undeniable. Even though I had known him for only a few weeks, I already understood how powerfully he could impact a space, a room, a person. He didn't speak loudly, nor did he move aggressively, but there was something about the way he carried himself that commanded attention. He had this way of being present without forcing it. His energy, quiet yet potent, filled the space between us, leaving me no choice but to acknowledge it. I had dressed carefully that evening, deliberately choosing something light, something that might suggest a hint of intention, but still leave room for ambiguity. A silk robe, chosen not just for its soft fabric, but for its ability to entice without revealing too much. I hadn't planned on anything, at least not consciously. The robe was more for me, a way of dressing in something that made me feel more like myself. Vulnerable, yes, but in a way that felt like a small rebellion against the life I had been leading. When the door swung open, Evan was standing there, bare-chested, wearing nothing but sweatpants. His skin still gleamed from his workout, his body defined in the most natural way, strong but not overly muscular, just enough to make it impossible for my eyes to look away. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, even across the threshold. His eyes met mine with a calmness that spoke volumes. He was waiting for me to say something, to make the first move, but I couldn't. I just stood there for a moment, lost in the way he looked at me. There was no judgment in his gaze, no urgency. It was as if he was simply observing, and somehow that was far more dangerous than anything else. "Hey," I finally said, the word coming out softer than I intended. My voice, though casual, betrayed the fluttering in my chest. "I was wondering if you'd like some company tonight." There was a pause, a beat of silence that stretched just long enough to make me question my decision. But then, almost as if he'd been expecting it, Evan raised an eyebrow. His lips, which had been in a neutral line, now curled up into that small, knowing smile that sent a wave of heat rushing to my face. He didn't need to say anything. His smile said it all. He stepped aside, and I walked in, but not without brushing past him ever so slightly. The touch was unintentional but still felt electric. The moment I passed him, I could feel the space between us tighten, the air thick with something unspoken. I stood in the middle of the room, not knowing exactly what I wanted, but feeling something pull me deeper into his orbit. I looked at him, and then, almost instinctively, my fingers went to the tie of my robe, pulling it slightly, as if to hint at something more. I could feel his eyes on me, his gaze unwavering as I hesitated, searching for the right words. But none seemed adequate. Instead, I simply whispered, "My husband's away tonight." The words sounded hollow as they left my lips. I hadn't meant to share that with him. It wasn't information he needed to know, but somehow I felt compelled to say it, to explain my presence. I told him that my husband was visiting family and wouldn't be back until the following evening. And just like that, the room seemed to shift again. The tension that had lingered between us solidified, thickened. There was a moment when his eyes darkened, just slightly, and his body seemed to relax, even though the atmosphere had grown heavier. It wasn't just the absence of my husband in that moment that changed things. It was the weight of what we both knew. We both understood what was happening. There was no need for words. Neither of us was pretending anymore. "I guess I've just been feeling a little lonely," I added, my voice barely above a whisper. It felt like an admission, something I hadn't meant to say aloud, but there it was. It hung between us, vulnerable, honest, and raw. I could feel his gaze sharpen, a shift in his posture as he took a step closer, closing the space between us. Instead of pulling away, as I half expected, he let out a soft laugh, low and knowing, as though he had already anticipated this moment. In one swift motion, he reached for my wrist, his hand warm and firm around it. I stopped, caught off guard, but before I could process what was happening, he pulled me closer, his other hand resting on my waist, guiding me with an ease that made me realize how out of control I truly was. The kiss came suddenly. His lips were on mine before I could think, before I could breathe. The softness of his mouth against mine was so unexpected, yet so familiar, as though this was something I had always wanted but never allowed myself to have. It wasn't a kiss of simple desire. It was deeper, full of intention, full of need. His hands moved to my back, pulling me closer, his body pressing against mine, and I felt the warmth of him seep into me. I kissed him back without hesitation, losing myself in the moment, in the heat that was building between us. Every part of me that had been dormant for so long seemed to come alive in that kiss. It was as though the walls I had built around myself, the ones I had carefully constructed to protect me, crumbled in an instant. Evan didn't rush. He wasn't in a hurry to claim me, to possess me. No, he was savoring it, taking his time. His lips moved from mine to my jaw, down the line of my neck, and as he did, I could feel every inch of my body responding to him. It was slow, deliberate, and everything about it was driving me insane. His hands were at my shoulders, pushing the silk of my robe off, exposing more of my skin to the cool air of the room. But his touch was warm, his fingers grazing over my collarbone, down the curve of my neck, and I couldn't breathe. I arched into him, the sensation of his fingers on my skin igniting a fire I hadn't felt in years. I felt vulnerable, yes, but it was a vulnerability that was somehow freeing. I wasn't just giving in to the moment. I was allowing myself to feel, something I had forgotten how to do. His hands moved slowly, as though he was memorizing every inch of me. It wasn't just the touch, though, it was his presence. The way he made me feel seen, wanted, like I was the only person in the world. In that moment, I understood something about myself. For so long, I had been living in the shadows of my own life, pushing down desires, needs, even emotions. But with Evan, those walls fell away. I no longer felt like a woman who was just playing a role in her own life. With him, I was alive. I was here, in the moment, and it felt overwhelming in the best way. He was gentle at first, but I could feel the hunger building, the tension between us becoming almost unbearable. I had come into his room with the intention of simply teasing, of testing the waters. But now, standing in his arms, I realized that I had crossed a line. There was no turning back. As the night wore on, we moved together in perfect rhythm, our bodies speaking a language we didn't need words for. I had no idea how it had happened, how I had gone from just a woman with a simple request for company to someone who had surrendered completely. But in that moment, I didn't care. All I cared about was the way he made me feel, the way he had taken control and, in the process, had awakened something in me that I had thought was long gone. When the dawn began to break, casting a soft light through the blinds, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The city outside continued to hum with life, but inside, in the quiet of his room, I was lost. Lost in him, lost in the connection, lost in everything that had just unfolded. As I look back on the story, it becomes clear that it wasn't just a tale of passion or fleeting desires. No, it was a deeper exploration of vulnerability, personal awakening, and the choices that shape the trajectory of our lives. Life often lures us into its rhythms, telling us that we must be strong, controlled, and always in charge. But sometimes it is in letting go, in surrendering to what we truly feel and desire, that we uncover a version of ourselves that has been hiding all along. This story, with all its intensity, serves as a powerful reminder that we should never let ourselves become numb to our own needs and emotions. We often suppress the desires that make us feel alive because we fear judgment, failure, or the consequences of breaking free from the ordinary. Yet when we allow ourselves the space to acknowledge and embrace those emotions, we unlock a sense of freedom that we may not have known we were craving. It's not about disregarding responsibility or relationships, but about recognizing that our emotional well-being, our joy, and our true selves deserve attention too. The connection between the protagonist and Evan is not just about physical attraction. It's about the journey of discovering one's own desires and, perhaps more importantly, having the courage to act on them. It's easy to let life pass by, to get caught up in the routine, and to forget what truly makes us feel alive. But the story shows that by allowing ourselves to explore, to be open, and to follow our instincts, we can create something powerful and transformative. It's about finding a balance between what's expected of us and what our hearts truly want. And sometimes we need to take risks to find that balance, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Through this journey, we learn the value of being present, truly present, in the moments that matter most. The protagonist wasn't just present in her life, but she allowed herself to be immersed in what she was experiencing. She leaned into the emotions and the choices, rather than distancing herself from them. And in doing so, she discovered something deeper than she had expected. As readers, we are invited to reflect on our own lives. What are we suppressing, denying, or hiding from ourselves? Are there emotions or desires we've buried because we fear a judgment or the unknown? The message here is clear. Life is too short to ignore what makes us feel alive. We should have the courage to confront our emotions, to explore new experiences, and to embrace the unknown. Only then can we truly understand the depth of our desires and the potential for growth that lies within us. If this story resonated with you, and if you found inspiration in the message of embracing vulnerability and following your true desires, then I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, you're not only showing your support, but you're also giving me the motivation to continue bringing more stories like this one, stories that explore life's deepest emotions and the lessons we learn along the way. Together, we can continue to explore the complexities of human experiences, and I promise there will be much more to come. So, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and be part of this journey. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon.